I am Colin.
I am David.
I am Bradley.
And this
is
Overarching,
really
a podcast about silences.
About pauses?
About pregnant pauses.
There you go. I knew that was
And
was
also
great.
about St. Louis. Overarching St. Louis podcast, sponsored by
First Bank, the original bank of banks.
Yeah, they're there at they were there when the great magic was written.
God said on the 8th day, let there be bank.
Jesus said, give to First Bank what is due to First Bank.
Specifically, speaking of JC, we're
Yeah.
specifically brought to you by
John Charlton. Different JC.
But more on that later.
Fantastic.
Good job.
Good work. Let's say the pledge.
Let's say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to Gregory FX Daly, the one to whom we owe it all, and to our taxes, which we prefer to be spent on breaking news. Local news outlet says salacious crime happening in your area. 50K likes, 50K shares, 1,000 comments. I can't believe this keeps happening in St. Louis. Fix the potholes, fix the crime. Democrat-controlled St. Louis. I saw on your Aunt Marine's Facebook wall that a local news outlet said there was salacious crime happening in your area. Are you safe? Is your car safe? Ding! Email from Uncle Bob. That's Maureen's husband. Crime in St. Louis. Read this story. www.localnewsoutlet.com/salacious-crime-in-your-area/story/feature/2/24/2017. Praying for you. Praying for your car. Ding! Misspelled text from your Aunt Val. Ding! Indecipherable text from your Uncle Frank. That's Val's ex-husband. Buzz! Grandma sent me a TikTok. I didn't know she could do that! Aunt Maureen's Facebook post now at 34 likes, 12 shares, 10 comments. Ring, ring. Hello? Mom? Yeah, did you read the article? It happened in North Carolina. I know a local news outlet posted it. They're just looking for engagement. I agree, they shouldn't do that. Yeah, someone really should do something about it. 1% to the god of yellow envelopes ignored by all.
All right.
Who's that?
Oh my
look
gosh.
who it is.
Alexis Zotos.
Alexis Zotos!
Hey. We had Alexis waiting out there for like 5 to 10 minutes.
I think you have
I was
a
laughing.
interesting perspective in time.
We don't need a.
Okay, it was
There's
like,
literally a timer right here.
Oh, that's a good point. We had Alexis Zotos waiting out in that room for 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
Because we didn't mess up the pledge even once.
Editing,
Right.
baby.
5, 6, 7, 8. We're back. Speaking of 5, 6, 7, 8, high school theater.
Yeah, high school theater.
Yeah.
Don't we love it so much when theater people roll into our studio? It feels like people get us a little bit better.
Yeah, I
And
think
by
so.
us,
I
I
think
mean you too.
theater people are, they're their own breed sometimes.
Sure.
They end up in local news, obviously.
They do. They do. I do thank the stars for finding that shift in my college career. So
Did you were you like all about theater kid, or were you like a circumstantial theater kid?
I really liked
good
theater kid. I really liked theater. I wanted to be like all in theater kid. I am not a singer, so the musical part of musical theater, I struggled a little bit. I could do the dancing, I could do the acting, not as much the singing. So, and plus I did a bunch of other activities in high school, so I couldn't like go all in on the high school theater, but I did.
What was your
local
lane
theater.
though? What was like? You said you did other things. What was your lane?
Too
was
many
it
things.
Still
I
the
did-
multimedia world.
No, not really. No, I actually didn't get into media until college. We had a high school broadcast. I think like kids could do the announcements. Now my former high school, like they have a huge multimedia program, which is fantastic. But they didn't as much then. And I did debate, I did volleyball, I did cheerleading, I did theater, I did hunger outreach project. I did.
Were you the Stuco president? This
I
seems
was,
like you did all the
I
things.
think I was the treasurer.
That tracks.
There you go.
Yeah, or the secretary.
think?
I can't. It really held a lot of. I can't remember.
Did you know at the time?
I don't know.
Was this a forced position?
I think I like want it to be higher up, and I think that was the one I won. So I played some role. I had to plan my 10-year high school reunion because I don't know, our president is off elsewhere.
You had to play?
plan it.
Plan it.
Oh, plan. I thought you said play.
our like head of student government then plans the reunion.
Gotcha.
And so I planned our 10-year.
I hate to ask.
Yeah.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Ladue.
Ah,
Anyway, so
Double ding? Wow,
great
wow,
segue
Colin.
because we here overarching when we have guests like to ask a different St. Louis questionnaire,
Mm-hmm.
which is supposed to be better questions than the garbage
What?
question that Colin just asked.
But we were talking about high school, so it did
True.
feel
It fit
like
the
a
bill.
natural
Yeah,
segue.
It fit the $1,000 dinner bill.
Yeah, but let's hit some quick questions to get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
Colin, you want to take us away?
yeah. This is the St. Louis questionnaire. We asked the same 10 questions to everybody.
Okay.
To really get a
I
nice
should have
baseline.
done my
for,
homework better.
for- yeah. So these are
Well, you'll
again,
see why you really
the
can't
same
do your homework.
the same
about
the same
these.
10 questions we asked to everybody. Ready? Question number 1. What's your local bar?
Oh my God. So I don't know if I have like a bar. I also have kids now. So like my like bar days are slightly different. We're more like a brewery kind of
Okay.
people.
That's very relatable.
We like modern. We like forehands. Those are more of our scene these days.
Yeah, forehand, you can let the Rugrats kind of
They,
run away a
yeah,
little bit.
our kids have been in breweries since day 3 years old. I think we brought our 3-day-old to Rockwell. Yeah,
Nice.
we're a brewery.
As
kinda.
a bar owner,
Yeah.
I feel that your kids are anti-small business.
That's fair. My kids love small businesses. My kids probably support more small businesses than most people
Your
because
kids would love small businesses. They're small.
they are small and they like
They're regular sized
Should we
businesses.
they
open
like
to
the
them.
things that businesses generally carry.
Should we open up baby bars?
You know,
I think some would say
Toddler
that.
chairs.
I think some would say that's a brewery now.
Non-alcoholic.
I will say the law does state, the code ordinance does state, as long as you're with an adult relative, it's cool. So bring your kids to the bar.
All right.
Baby
Love it.
bar.
The toddlers
Non-alcoholic milk.
Yeah.
are
Bring your kids to
coming
the
up.
bar, and you'll end up like me, a kid who was brought to the bar a lot.
Yeah. Colin basically lived in a bar growing up. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Both because my mom owned one and also frequented them. Anyway, it's not about me.
Yeah. No,
Next question.
Next question. What is and from where is your sandwich?
Oh my God. This makes me feel bad though, because then I have to like pick my favorites.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Okay,
We
I'm
trap
sorry
you.
to so many of my sandwich people, but I mean, immediately I go Benton Park at Blue City Deli.
Yeah.
The correct answer.
There are correct answers.
Yeah.
There is one
What
of the
what
correct
what on the
answers.
menu there specifically?
The only correct
what
For
do
you.
what do
No,
go
the
to?
Benton Park. That's
Oh, the
that,
Benton Park.
It's called the Benton
that
Park.
one. That
Gotcha.
one
Yeah, yeah.
specifically.
Heck yeah.
So good. And
David,
I just love Vinny and everyone there. So
David,
Hmm.
we can't fight anymore about this.
We
Like,
can- we can
it's not
fight.
my job to educate you.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
No, like facts.
Yeah.
Facts matter.
Yeah.
Blue City Deli is the correct answer to this question.
That's your opinion, man, and you're correct.
Well, so what's yours?
I'm an E of all these person.
Okay, so I just went there for the first time.
Yeah.
And it skyrocketed up.
Yeah,
And also
that's-
because they were so lovely, because I also forgot my wallet and tried to use Apple Pay. And they were like, yeah, we're not an Apple Pay kind of establishment.
They
I'm
are
like, I feel that. And so I had to call my dad, who thankfully was nearby, and he brought me money to pay for my sandwich.
That's amazing.
That's lovely.
It was
I can
really-
see him being like, Apple Pay.
Oh.
We don't take fruits. What do you mean? Like it's
Yeah.
we take
Even
cash,
my
it's
dad
money.
was like, I'm embarrassed.
AJ,
by
AJ
you.
and Denny there are just like they're like classy people. They're
But
just
here's-
like old school neighborhood
Yes.
people walk in there and know each other's names. How's your mom? How's your dad? Like how's little Vinny doing? You know, like you just feel like you're on an episode of The Sopranos where nobody wants to kill each other.
But that's the nice thing about St. Louis is that there are so many great ones, and I am a frequent sandwich shop kind of person, and
Oh, yeah.
I have only just been there. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
So many more
there
places
was
to
you know,
explore.
a local law firm made an entire series out of eating different sandwiches.
Yeah.
There's so many great ones.
So many.
in the area.
Yeah, who knew you could make
Yeah,
a
yeah.
whole series, a YouTube series about sandwiches in your local area?
Mm-hmm.
Wait was the name of your station when you worked in Knoxville.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it was.
It's
It's
located.
WATE.
Yeah,
That's how you say it.
it's but like it's. Let's be real. It's Wait.
Yeah. I don't think anyone called it that. But
It's
yeah.
located in a Romanesque mansion,
Greystone Manor.
a Greystone Manor.
Mm-hmm.
Who's it haunted by?
Ooh, I don't
Again,
know.
we ask these
Probably
questions to everybody.
We ask these questions
Greystone.
to everybody.
Probably, I don't know, the ghost of Greystone. I actually don't know what the...
Because it's definitely haunted.
This isn't.
It
Like
was
trivia
a
question.
weird, it was a strange place to work. They just truly outfitted this like old stone mansion into a news station. And the third floor, I mean, that's where there was a coffee machine and probably a ghost.
If
or
the third floor is
two.
designated only for a coffee machine,
Yeah.
it's for the ghost.
I don't know. I never went up there. You don't really like get to hang out a lot in the newsroom as a reporter. You're just kind of like always out and about, especially when I
Sure.
was in Tennessee, because our coverage area was pretty wide. And so we were just like, I was always on the road to different towns telling different stories.
Pigeon Forge.
Pigeon Forge. Yeah. Went there many a time.
Yeah, it's just a good name.
It is very much like Branson
Oh, yeah.
in Tennessee.
No, I'm a big roller coaster head.
Oh,
okay.
Dolly-
There you go. So
Dolly-
Dollywood?
Somebody was going to bring up Dollywood.
You mentioned Pigeon Forge, Dave.
I know.
But I was on the
It was a
Branson notes-
mistake.
on the Branson, it's like driving like down the main thoroughfare in Pigeon Forge. There's like literally 2 of everything. There's like 2 $9.99 shops for trinkets. There's 2. I think there was like 2 Ripley's. Believe it or not, there's
There might be.
2
Believe it
of
or not.
every.
There is only one Titanic museum, though.
Sure. But yeah, it's wild. It's weird. It's a vibe for sure.
Did you know Dollywood has the most ridden train tracks in the entire state of Tennessee?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would, yeah.
as public transit is non-existent.
Right.
In
I
Tennessee.
don't
Yes,
think
is the
there's
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
no
I think
other.
just
Nashville has
sad.
that weird
real
train that
trains.
nobody rides.
Correct.
Yeah,
Nashville has the weird
the
train. Memphis
Star,
doesn't have
whatever it
anything
is.
else, and Knoxville doesn't.
I'm a big
have
fan
it.
of Soaky Mountain. That's new in Seaverville, but
Oh,
I was also just at the Open Chord, if that means anything.
it
in
doesn't.
Knoxville.
No,
It's
I
way on
really,
the outskirts.
I really want to go. I really loved Knoxville. Like it was a really awesome place for a first job post college. I loved it, and I want to go back there. It's probably been like 8 years since I've been back, and I want to take my
What's
family.
that crazy building downtown? The big thermometer-looking one.
Oh,
The big
the Sun Sphere.
there, that one.
Oh
The
wow,
Sun Sphere.
I had to really reach
Way to go.
deep into my brain just then. Yeah, the Sun Sphere.
Did you get paid or were you a volunteer?
I was a paid reporter, but I became a volunteer fan. Go Vols. I did not like have a big experience in like SEC football, and I went to USC, the real one, not South Carolina. I went to Southern California, and we had incredible football. Being in Tennessee and experiencing UT football was like next level.
Oh yeah, it's religion.
Oh,
People
yeah.
say they're Christians and like Baptists down there. It's like no, you're football heads.
Yeah.
There's a reason that the largest stadiums in the country are college football stadiums.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's nuts. Best spot to be outside in St. Louis.
Forest Park. It's just in so
Is
many
there a specific
different.
spot?
No, because it just depends on like what you want to do. I mean, I got married there, so I'm also partial to that. But
Like
I'll
in,
do
in
it.
the whole park.
yeah, the entire park was actually my
You took-
wedding.
You took pictures on hole 18.
No,
Technically, there is no hole 18.
I've never.
There's a hole 9.
I went to a wedding once on the golf course, but otherwise, I've never. That's a part of Forest Park that I don't know much about.
David golfs.
I'm not a golfer, so
Yeah, I golf.
I've been
Yeah.
to the.
I'm from Lake St. Louis.
the putting.
I golf.
The putting range. That's not what it's called. Whatever you. I don't golf.
The putting green?
No, when you hit the ball.
driving range.
Driving range. Thank you. That's the only really experience I've had with golf there. But
Yeah.
I got married at the bottom of Art Hill, looking up, which was
nice.
pretty
At the
epic.
bottom of Art.
Yes, like on the
Which-
stones, like
Uh-huh.
with the little stairs. That's where I
I
got
feel like
married.
everyone does Spanish Pavilion, but that's which is
the
also
World's
great.
Fair Pavilion, you mean?
Oh yeah.
Or- yeah. My sister got married there actually last summer.
Yeah.
Did you
Um,
see the during the tornado the other day? There was a wedding.
I
like,
did,
actively-
and I could not believe that. We had a monsoon. Our rehearsal dinner was at the Boathouse in Forest Park, and we had a monsoon, and there was tornadoes like out west, or tornado warnings going off. We were in a tent outside the Boathouse for the rehearsal
So you
dinner.
were there.
I was, and the rain was coming in sideways, and we went inside. We're like, "Hey, so could someone tie the sides of this tent because we're getting soaked?" And they were like, "Yeah, no one knows where the ties are." So we just huddled in the center of the tent. Rain's coming in, there's crickets like in these giant puddles.
Not
Like
crickets.
so the redeeming thing was this was 2019. And the Stanley Cup was actually inside the boathouse. One of the coaches or someone of the Blues was getting their night with the cup. And so sort of as an apology for monsooning on our rehearsal dinner, they were like, hey, like, we know you and your husband are like big Blues fans. Like, do you want to come in and see the cup? And we said, yeah. And so we got to go in like through the kitchen and like sneak in like into this little party with the cup and smile, get our picture taken with it.
Let you drink out of it.
No, they like didn't even want us to get a picture with it. We were like, we're getting a picture. My husband's like, no. I'm like, we're getting a picture with the cup, okay? It just rained all over us.
Yeah.
We're getting a picture with the cup.
This is
So
miserable, two wet people.
it was
at the
pretty
Stanley Cup.
amazing. Yes, it was. And then it was dry for the wedding, so it was great.
Wow. Good.
Best spot to be outside near the Annenberg School for Journalism.
I don't even know. Well, first off, it's like very different now from when I went to college, and I guess the quad at campus. Yeah, I don't even know. There's a little courtyard area. I went back 2 years ago, and it's nicer than any like professional newsroom now. The college newsroom. It was a lot different from when I was there. But
Did you spend a lot of time on campus? Or were you just
I
like,
guess so.
I'm an LA girl now.
No.
I'm just going to vibe around town.
I did do a lot of exploring in LA and hung out a lot in LA, but I did a fair amount on campus as well.
I feel like USC's whole thing is like, we're outside.
We,
Like, did you know we're in California and you can be outside here?
You can.
I have a student that auditioned there
Oh,
for
yeah.
the theater program, and like their whole like pamphlet for,
it's just
that was
people
just, like,
outside.
palm trees. It doesn't snow here. It's LA.
It was really nice. Like the ability to like call my parents in St. Louis in January and be like, I'm on the beach, was really nice. I did enjoy rubbing that in.
As a person who grew up in Florida, I couldn't have run away screaming faster. But
Yeah.
that wrong coast though. It
Right,
is-
yeah.
LA is different. This isn't going to become a podcast about the weather, but like,
That's good.
like LA is LA.
It was the weather is pretty stellar.
It's yeah.
Wildfires in Florida aren't
I
really much
mean,
of a thing,
wildfires.
That is true because it
Not less
rains every
ideal.
day.
though.
Yeah.
It does.
That's the thing. Whoever called Florida the Sunshine State was a liar. Just like everything
Or
else
a
about Florida.
marketer.
That'd be Colorado. Denver is like sunny as freaking heck.
They say
Yeah,
that.
Florida being the Sunshine State is like Greenland.
Yeah. Well, in Colorado, at least in the mountains, you get sunburn faster because you're closer to the sun.
Is that true?
That
I think it's 'cause
would
it's bouncing
think
off
that
the
would
snow.
be true, and I just don't know if that's true. But I'm gonna take it.
It feels true, and that's what's important.
I'm gonna take it with a grain of
Yeah,
snow.
it's like how you get a sunburn real fast in space when you're actively freezing and exploding.
Happened to me.
Okay, Katy Perry.
Excuse me, astronaut. Katy Perry.
Astronaut Katy Perry. Okay, so if you're telling somebody about St. Louis,
Okay.
what's the first thing you tell them about? If they're not from here.
That it's very family friendly. And we have a lot of free stuff.
I think the free thing comes up so much.
Yeah.
And people are actually, their heads explode when you tell them how many things are free.
I just was telling somebody I was in Washington, D.C., and, they have a lot of free museums as well. And I said, but I don't know if you have as many as St. Louis. So we have a lot of free stuff. And people, then you get the people, well, is it free if we all pay our taxes for it? And, but yes, it is. It's free and it's amazing.
I don't
It's
want my
nice when
I don't-
taxes go to things that
Right.
then
Yeah.
become free.
Yeah, but I don't want my taxes going toward it. It's like
Okay,
that's not really.
then don't go to the zoo,
Yeah,
Diane.
that's not really how taxes work.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I got booed at our live show for saying that. Remember that? Like somebody, we were talking about taxes. We were talking about like whatever, and it was like, yeah, no, like taxes are the price for living in a society. Like
And somebody booed you?
someone went boo, and I was like, yeah, no, like you don't get to decide if your taxes are going to the zoo
They
or
had thought
not.
you were part of the proletariat.
Yeah, it's like I want free zoo, but I don't want like the elephants need to get paid too, man.
Yeah.
I guess.
Speaking of the zoo, Bradley.
Yeah. What is your favorite animal at the zoo and why?
Well, I really want to see the baby elephant.
Uh-huh.
So
I saw a
that.
picture. I saw a video of it falling asleep last night. I was
When there was a baby rhino, I mean, obviously he's a bigger rhino now, but when he was a baby a couple of years ago, that was like peak, like getting to see a little baby rhino, and a baby elephant looks so cute. I like the elephants. Yeah.
Are you
But
sad
when the
about
bear
Raja?
bounces, when you get to see the grizzly bear like bounce in the water,
It's pretty
that's
freaking
pretty
cute.
cool.
Are you
As-
upset about Raja?
Yeah, because I feel like I grew up with Raja.
We grew up with
Yeah,
Raja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we are of sort of a
Like,
similar
Raja
age.
was gonna like exist
bracket.
forever.
Raja
Yeah.
is and will forever be the main character of the St. Louis Zoo. to me.
100%. And I mean, I remember signing Raja's birthday card
Yeah.
as a child.
Yeah,
Like,
that was a
that's
thing.
one of those memories that if you lived in a certain age,
Yeah.
you were
That
born in
was
a
a
certain
thing.
years, then you probably have that memory.
All I'm saying is if the baby elephant gets kidnapped, don't check my house.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Don't.
So
Where would you keep a baby elephant in your house?
he'd find ways.
Well, it wouldn't be there, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. It wouldn't be anywhere.
No. Yeah. Duh.
It wouldn't be at the house, that's for sure.
Alexis.
It wouldn't be at the house.
What are you, an investigative journalist?
Yeah.
Certainly wouldn't be at the bar.
Am I allowed to ask
tricky.
questions back right?
That's a very big room back there. So, you could
I mean, you could fit
an elephant. You could fit an elephant.
I don't know about
getting
the
it in.
door would be the challenge.
Well, that's why you get it in now.
Right.
Oh, that's just
okay,
entrapment.
so
That seems no animals were harmed in the filming of this show. Don't check my house though. I have a decent sized backyard
okay.
for the city. You know,
Alexis, which one of these suck the most? You ready?
Okay.
Cubs, Reds, Blackhawks, Sporting Kansas City, Rams, Chief, Dealer's Choice.
Okay, I obviously am a sports fan as a St. Louisan, but like I don't get the like whole hate. But I guess my husband would want me to say Blackhawks because we are a hockey household. But I guess I grew up more so hating on the Cubs, just because that's what you do
Yeah,
as a St. Louisan. But I went to Wrigley and it was a really wonderful experience, and the Cubs fans were nice when I was there.
hate in like St. Louis rivalries works a lot differently than like Boston does, because theirs is
Yeah.
like pent up, like crazy pent up Catholic
I will say-
aggression.
I am still sad that I'm mad at the Red Sox for beating the Cardinals at one of the World Series games that I got to go to.
Yeah.
So I was that was disappointing. I would have liked to see that win.
My biggest hate of any sports franchise for the like longest time were the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah.
I
And
used
then they
to-
got to make that movie and because they beat us, and that was a bummer.
Yeah. Every time I hear Sweet Caroline, I want to barf.
yeah, didn't they? The World Series they won, the first one, like in forever, like was against the Cardinals.
In
Yes, it
1918.
was.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
It's 1918, and it was 2004 and 2013. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 2013 they beat us too.
Oh.
Well, but the big
No, but
first
the
one
big
was
the
the 2004 one was against.
2004 one was the big one where they swept us.
Oh, I'm
And they-
thinking
and they won
of
for the
okay, so
first
I'm
time
thinking of the
since-
2013 one. That would have been the one that I
You into?
went to.
Yeah.
Yes.
They made a
'Cause I
movie
came
about
from
the
I drove
2004.
from Knoxville and went to the game here. So
Cool.
yeah. With some Knoxville Red Sox fans.
Ew.
Yeah.
I will
You're
say
from Tennessee and a Red Sox fan?
Was that a rough drive back?
I don't remember honestly. I think they were really again,
You just
I
blacked out.
am a sports fan, but I do not let it has no impact on my life the next day.
Wow. Yeah.
Like
Wow.
a win or a lose.
Congratulations. What a great revelation
Yeah.
you've discovered that
Yeah.
I still to this day cannot find out.
maybe you should get some tips.
I need help.
Care
Yeah,
less
David
about
becomes
sports.
a 2-year-old flailing on the ground.
I did fall to the ground at 2.4 seconds when
Again,
the Jets.
absolutely.
I mean, that
the
was-
right time to fall on the ground.
I fell
Right,
to
that
the
was
ground.
fair.
Colin was there. I put my hands like on my face on the ground, curled up like a freaking baby. I wanted to say so many expletives that I could like. Oh my God.
That was brutal.
That was
Yeah.
literally a jaw dropping
yeah,
moment.
it
though. Like,
was.
Yeah.
Both me and Angela had our mouths open and didn't realize we had our mouths open. It was, like
there
that-
were
that doesn't
millions
really
of mouths
happen.
agape in St. Louis. Yeah.
That was rough. That was rough, buddy.
Let's move
But
past that.
there's always next year.
No, is there? Yeah, there probably is.
I
We'll
hope
be
so.
okay. I think we'll be
Also,
fine.
like as a recovering Cubs fan, like y'all.
You're doing great this season, pal.
Well, so here's the thing, y'all. Like St. Louis needs to buck up a little bit. Like
What are you talking about?
Hmm.
like St. Louis will never know the pain and will never know the joy of being a Cubs fan. And you lose for a couple years, and it's like you've never won
Yeah.
Chicago will never know the pain of losing a football franchise twice.
Sure, that's fair. Complain about that.
No,
Oh,
gosh.
have I?
let's not.
Yeah, like
I do
that's
feel
a real
like
thing.
Rams fans need to just kind of get over it.
Let's no, here's the thing. Hot take.
oof.
They came from LA. They went back.
I think the way it happened was terrible. We should
Absolutely.
still have the Rams, but I just feel like we've just kind of made it too much of our personality.
It was I think that's more about the money too. Like
Yeah.
like getting the Rams settled.
Yeah, and now it's just like we're just going to talk about the Rams settlement for the rest of our lives, I think.
and never do anything with it.
Right.
Well, my biggest beef was the fact that they could have had him for $2 billion plus, and they should have had him for $2 billion plus. And like even looking back on it, lawyers are like, there is no way St. Louis should have gotten less than $2 billion for this. And we
need
settled
more
for
money.
760, 790.
I started to
whatever it was.
really glaze. I was
Million.
really glad to not be covering any sort of Rams settlement, the secret meetings. As a journalist and as just like a St. Louis I just kind of glazed over and I said, just tell me when it's all said and done.
You got to teach me your Zen ways, Alexis. I need I'd say 90% of my rage comes from sports, and maybe I need to talk with my dad about that.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I just saw him over the weekend. Maybe I should have a
You should talk to your dad.
father to son talk about sports.
Doesn't your
rage.
dad also get crazy mad about sports?
We do. Colin, last question.
Final question.
When you Google, and again, we ask these to everybody. When you Google Alexis Zotos,
Oh gosh. Yeah.
the first question that comes up is, what happened to Alexis Zotos? What happened to Alexis Zotos?
Oh really? I haven't Googled myself in a while, so I'm assuming that's post me leaving KMOV.
Well,
What happened to it doesn't specify.
our question to you is
What happened to Alexis Zotos?
What happened to you?
Well, almost exactly a month ago, I did step away from KMOV First Alert 4. And
I think it's pronounced Kmav.
yeah, how?
Oh, yeah, tell her
you
how it's
said,
pronounced.
You
You
said
were the
wait.
ones. Wait.
So how would you say KMOV?
K-Mov.
Kmav.
Okay. all right.
KMOV.
Complex consonant
I'm
cluster
trying to
there at
think.
the beginning.
Some places like do say like the first letter and then they like say out, say.
They do.
I'm trying to think of like who that would be,
like
but
W-Fan or...
I feel like not. I feel like they all. I feel like even ones that get cute like that, they spell it out.
everybody...
The
yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I can't think of like off the top of my head who like.
I mean...
Oh, KCAL. Like that's the station in Los Angeles. They
Yeah.
say KCAL instead of KCA.
I mean, KLOU
Oh.
could be K-Lou, but
They
we don't
could.
say it.
That would be so much better though.
I agree with you. I've said that I have had this for a long time.
You just reminded us, Keishi.
Yes,
Oh.
Keishi.
Yeah, that's
There
right.
you go.
Thank you, Yunya. This is why Yunya is the smartest person in the room and the quietest. Like
Also,
as a producer.
the same, not to dox him, the same student of mine that applied to USC.
Oh,
His dad, the music director at KG, so I should have known that.
nice. nice. There
We're
you
in
go.
trouble.
Yeah, what happened? No, I'm here. I'm hanging out. I'm busy, and I have not missed the news as much as I thought I would.
And you have two kids who hate small business.
I do. I have two kids that I love hanging out with. I will be 100% transparent. I have been 100% busier this month than I have been in the news for a very long time. So I am not quite slowing down in any way, shape, or form that I thought I was, but that I think is still just settling into newness and kind of figuring out what post traditional media looks like for my life.
Yeah, what prompted the transition, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's something I had been thinking about for a while. Last year, I realized that the lifestyle of working in local news was really tough as a mom of two toddlers. And so I thought about it for a long time and thought, I think now is the time to maybe step away. It was a really tough decision. My contract was going to be up. I told work that I said, hey, like I love it here, but I think it's time for me to step back and find something that allows for a little bit more flexibility to be. At that point, I was still doing the 10 o'clock. So I was not home at night. My husband and I essentially were living like we were acting as single parents. And so it was just really tough. They said, hey, well, would you stay part-time? And so I did that. I stayed part-time. It was great. I moved to days and did the 4, 5, and 6 o'clock news. But even working 3 days doing that was still a challenge when it came to trying to find more flexibility. You know, I wanted to be at the random midday concert that my toddler was going to have at school, and knowing that that was only going to increase, and wanting to be home more for dinner, and just kind of having a flexibility that local news, you know, can't offer. The news is on at a certain time and you got to be there. So I struggled with it because I really did love my station, and I really do think that they do incredible work and great journalism. And so it was tough to leave, but I felt like, okay, the telling my boss, I like didn't tell then anybody else for like a week, like not even my friends. Like I told my husband and, you know, my mom, my sister, but other than that, I didn't really tell anybody. And then a week later, I was like, okay, I think I need to start telling people. And then it was starting to feel more real. And once I publicly announced it, I got that feeling of, okay, I think this is the right decision.
I mean, so many people were behind your back.
Yeah, and which was really nice. And it was so wonderful to hear from people that I'd interviewed over the years, you know, about the impact that I had on them. It was really lovely to hear from public officials who said that they felt like I was a voice they could trust in news media. That feels really good as a journalist. And so I felt sad in some ways to leave that and almost feel like I was doing a disservice to my city by not. That sounds really narcissistic, but truly, I mean, I felt like I did good work over those 10 years that I worked at KMOV, and I didn't want to. I wanted to ensure all those stories were still being told, and thankfully, I know that there's a lot of great people doing good journalism in town to carry on the torch.
Within that, like, you know, obviously your training, your career has been all in journalism and a lot of traditional journalism. Do you, and you kind of, sometimes you alluded to it, do you see like your personal identity as journalist?
Yes.
And so like so how does that, you know, look in, you know, how are you navigating that identity with stepping away from traditional news media, and like how's that driving you to whatever the next thing is?
No, it's really hard. That was something I struggled with for a long time, was like a lot of people in journalism, like really, you know, that is their identity. They are a journalist. They are a TV reporter. And honestly, it was the first like couple of days post leaving KMOV that someone's like, and who are you with? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm with myself. Like, I don't have like an identifying feature in that. Like, I don't even have like a real, like at that point, other career to say that I'm doing or things like that. So I was like, who am I with? I'm with myself. I'm Alexis.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a struggle. I think also one of the easiest ways for me to describe to people what I was doing was stepping away so I could spend more time with my family. And one person said like, oh, so like, are you just going to be a stay-at-home mom? And I was like, oh, okay, well, I will phrase this nicer than you deserve. But, you know, first off, there is no just being a stay-at-home parent. Sure. I think that is probably the hardest job out there. And even if I was like, okay, so maybe that is what I want to do. But I'm being a mom. I'm doing social media. I'm doing digital marketing. I'm gonna do a podcast again. So I'm doing a lot of things. So there is no like one identifier anymore. And that has been a bit of a struggle identity wise.
I guess, along that, you know, like what, aside from like specific plans, like, how are you shaping up your career? But like as a journalist, and maybe like, you know, stepping away, something like might free you to focus more on something you want to, like what parts of journalism, you know, if you had all the time in the world, like would you really want to, like, get you going? Like what's the focus you love so much?
So I mean, my favorite stories are just stories about people, like telling someone's story that they felt couldn't reach a larger audience. That to me always meant the world. Like getting a text from somebody being like, thank you for telling my story. Like, you know, whether it was about, you know, a struggle with their city hall or something like that, that they were a voice that maybe they didn't feel like they could get heard. Being able to help get their story told, whether it ended up getting results or not, that always meant a lot. And I tell people this all the time. Everyone has a really interesting story to tell if you have the desire and the ability to sit down and chat with somebody. And I love telling those stories of our community. And St. Louis has a lot of really cool people doing awesome things. So I like highlighting the positive in St. Louis.
We get it. You're exactly the right kind of person to be a journalist. Oh God, you're like good at your job.
How boring.
Jesus
But
Christ.
those aren't always the stories that get told on traditional media, as you guys have alluded to a time or two.
A time or two.
I was gonna say you used the phrase something along the lines of like navigating a post traditional media life a few minutes ago. I think. In a way, I mean, hot take, podcasters saying that traditional media is dead. But like, I think we're all kind of living that.
Yeah.
You know, we were trying to build a segment for this show. We usually do a comment section readers theater, and we were like digging through recent news stories, and it's just like, man, like either just fluff or non-local stories on every single news outlet, and so many of them are the same
on social media, on their social
On
media
social
pages.
media,
yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too is like because we were having
I don't have cable. I don't.
well, and we were and
There's a website and we have a mobile app.
Whoa.
A mobile
She can
app.
Call you out.
But we were trying to talk about like David has a communications degree, but
First of all, it's communication with no S.
No S. That is this is
yeah.
a thing.
She's got me.
There you go. But like we all like we all like have affinity for like the classic ethics of journalism. So we were trying to like articulate how has that shifted in America to where you are today. But I think you bring up an interesting point on like the social media website element of it is like just seeing on social media the headlines, the comments, the posts that aren't even news stories that are just like generic, like, what did you do today? Text, like, engagement things.
Yeah.
And it's like, aren't you supposed to be the news? And like on one level, I get it. We live in this world where like everybody's eyes are on social media, so you have to find ways to like pull those eyes to your thing, whatever it is. But also like, if all the eyes are only seeing your news station in the context of what you present on social media, then like, are you devaluing your product? It's like, oh, well, our product is real and there are people doing reporting and it's in this box over here that you have to get to if you want to. But if no one's seeing that, it's this weird, like, are you still doing the work that you're doing?
Yeah, it's attracting people to what might be a health food store with a bunch of donuts. Like, it's here's a donut, kid.
Yeah, it's hard. And
come into my Whole Foods.
I can't even
Like-
begin to understand the full, like, I'm glad I didn't have to do anything from a corporate or understanding how the financials of a news organization work. Like, I have no idea. And
Kind of better that way.
probably. Yeah. I mean, that's designed. Like, we were separated from sales and things like that. And so much of that plays into the media landscape and how do we ensure the survival of local news. And the fact is, it costs money to put on a newscast and run a news station. And social media is where they try to pull eyes to make sure they come over to the TV, which is where the money is still made. And
Well, it's like you talk about I said I didn't have cable.
yeah.
And
you can get an antenna and it's like free.
sure, but like,
He's just being pedantic.
but no, I'm not, because here's the thing. It's
All right,
like,
okay.
I just a fight.
Yeah.
So like,
We did a story about how to set up your antenna and watch it for free
and where did you put that?
on social media, I think, or on the news. I don't actually know where they shared
And
it.
how many other stories were shared that day?
I don't even know.
So here's my thing. We talk a lot about like accessibility, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
It's like in our world in theater, it's like, really about like meeting people where they are. How do you convince someone in 2025 to not only, like be aware of what you're doing, but also to get up off of their couch and come to another place and sit down there, spend money to do that, and do that over and over and over again over the years. Like how do you find that person, and then how do you find 200 of them for 14 shows 4 times a year? Like it's a monumental task, and it's about like, the accessibility element of meeting people where they are is like where are their eyes already?
Yeah.
And it's like my thing with local news especially is that while like TV might be, and I don't even think it's that, like might be still a vanguard for like fact-based reporting and like, and I'm not even really saying that maybe it's fact-based reporting, but it's like, you know, in the most alert breaking news, like, you know, kind of way
first alert?
First alert.
First alert. Change our colors from blue to as
red.
vibrant red as humanly
yeah,
possible.
as we count, you know, in you know, we would say 1, we say 2, 3, first alert 4, 5.
Yeah.
The
You haven't heard that one yet?
I haven't.
Okay.
the
Colin likes
point,
that one a lot.
The point I'm getting to is like, how do what's the future of media look like where we meet people where they are? Because that's what TV happened in the first place, right? Like people started having TVs in their home and the news channels were like, oh, we need to do that. You know, the news isn't on radio anymore, and it still is, but like, you know, people migrated to TVs in the 50s and 60s. And then now we've migrated to social media. What do you think the future of fact-based reporting looks like on social media? Because right now I don't think it is. Like it's just,
I think I'd have a lot of money if I had any idea
answer to
what
that, right?
the answer
Yeah.
to that was.
do you think there is an answer though?
I think there has to be, and I think it's going to take creativity, and I think it's going to take people understanding that there might not be as much money in media then I don't know. I think part of it is like there needs to be less money being made, and we have to understand that sometimes we do have to put free information out onto social media, and to the hope that they pull that you know, my thing always used to be, and this is why I always preached, hey, we need to be doing more with social media. We need to be putting our stories out on Instagram. We need to be using TikTok. And, you know, from a company and a financial standpoint, like the media companies aren't making money off of TikTok necessarily. They're not making money off Instagram. But I think
nobody is.
Right, exactly. So, but I think that if you are someone who, and I take this as like a personal responsibility, like I put my news stories out on social media. I try to tell news tidbits, if you will, on Instagram in the hopes that when somebody does want to watch the news, if there is a big story, if there's a big weather event, and they're like, you know what, I do need to turn on the news today, they're going to say, oh, I like Alexis on Instagram, so I'm going to go to her station, I'm going to turn on First Alert 4, and I'm going to watch the news there. That's how you then create a new viewer who will then hopefully stick around and say, oh, I like what I'm seeing here, I think I'll tune in more at 5, or I'll download that mobile news app and get my news that way. I think that's the way that we have to do it. But the problem is that news departments are getting cut. Reporters, producers are having to do twice as much as they were doing before. So yeah, you're not going to have all the time to then post it on social media in addition to all the other workload that you already have. So I have absolutely no idea what the answer is.
I think you actually had two really good answers in there. For me, one of those is like, it's the fundamentally like kind of ridiculous question that I think both sides of the kind of political spectrum among people right now will, and I hesitate to say both sides when talking about the current government, but like when it comes to how people view the media, you have the obvious like, the lamestream media from one side, and then from you know, the weird lefty side, it's like, why aren't these people reporting anything of substance? The making money.
Yeah. The
fundamentally ridiculous question is like, why? Like, not that reporters shouldn't make money,
right,
but why should the news be profitable?
Right. And I mean, other than, again, I'm not a business person, so I don't know how that all works. People need to be paid. You know, even if you look at traditional newspapers and the struggle with the Post-Dispatch of most stories are behind a paywall, and for years and years and years, people have gotten online information for free. They have always paid for a newspaper, and then they stopped wanting to get that, and then they wanted to get their information online, and that information is now behind a paywall because reporters do need to be paid. And
I just don't understand
how do you cut larger at the top, I think, is the bigger
It's like, why aren't more news outlets nonprofit organizations? Like,
I am going to Google the answer later.
Sure,
someone has written something. I'm sure.
Yeah. But the second thing that I wanted to touch on that she said was like trusting a reporter.
Yeah.
I feel like is becoming a relic of the past.
Yeah.
Right. Like we have what's Hot Weatherman's name?
No.
What's Hot Weatherman's name?
Steve.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Steve. I knew that's who you guys were going to say.
No.
I mean, Steve is a very
no. You're right, Alexis. He's hot.
You know, but like the number.
It's okay. I'm married. You're married. We can all say Steve
is hot.
Steve works it.
Steve
works.
He's our local, Steve Kornacki of the weather, though.
Steve is an amazing.
He's our
person.
Steve.
He's our Steve. But like, the number one thing on my like various feeds when the tornado happened, obviously, was the tragedy of it all. But the number two thing was like, Steve, though.
I love that. You know that you've made it as a human when people like say to each other colloquially, Steve rolled his sleeves up.
Yeah. It is
like,
a very.
You know shit's about to hit the fan. It's like, man, you made it, Steve. I don't know how you did it. Yeah. You literally just went like this, and you made it.
Yeah, but like,
what were you saying?
I was saying on the idea of like it kind of cuts both ways. Of we're seeing both a reduction and an increase in like a reporter I can trust, because like it used to be like, okay, like you have like the news records, like who's the national anchor, and that's like the most trustworthy old white guy in the country,
Walter
and, and but I think people trusted those voices because they trusted the institutions, and they were the face of the institution. We're losing broad institutional trust, one because the institutions are losing audience because the media landscape is broadening out, but two, when the institutions are trying to play the clickbait game in the place where most people see most stuff, then people are going to lose trust in that. But it's like, people get their news from TikTok these days. But it's like, yeah, because like a person
is
like you
on TikTok
who cares about the news is spending their time on TikTok saying, like, I'm talking about this real, actual reported news story. I may be doing a summary, that maybe personality driven, but like, yeah, that's like in the same way that like, it's funny that people like will complain about, well, people are just getting their news from TikTok. It's like, would you make the same complaint? Like, people are getting their crafting information from TikTok. It's like, yeah, that's where the information is.
I'm gonna push back on that a little bit though, because like,
I mean,
we're conflating reporter.
You don't have editors. Like there are levels of like.
That's what I'm saying. Like reporter versus
random
voices.
person. Yeah.
Correct.
And that's hard to know.
Correct.
And most people, when they find my stuff on TikTok, like they don't know that I either was a reporter at the time, Right. It is hard. And how do you trust one person versus the next? And how do you know there's accuracy? And
right. But I think the point I was trying to make is that people are naturally finding voices they trust. Whether they should be trusting them or not, like that's on media literacy.
Sorry, finding voices.
Our audio-only listeners freak out at this show.
But they're finding voices they trust, whether or not they should be trusting those voices, whether or not those voices are trustworthy.
Bradley,
I think the
voice
pattern of engagement, the pattern of the human connection through the media landscape is to trust someone's voice. And so that's a little bit that's on media literacy, a little bit that's on, because even as I suppose, are you an independent journalist now? Like
I wouldn't say I am now. I don't know. I think that,
but like, because like at least like the fact is like you have a habit of working in an industry where you have like editorial oversight. Yeah. And so you're accustomed to working to like high standards.
Absolutely.
And I have no doubt that you continue to work to those high standards, but you also like aren't actually operating in a high, that situation
just
anymore.
Me and my phone.
Right. You know? And so then the question is like, if we don't feel like we can trust the institutions that have editorial oversight, but we also can't know that we can trust someone without editorial oversight unless we, non-derogatory, non-buzzword, do our own research. It's complicated.
It 100% is. And again, I think if anyone had the easy answers, like we'd all be millionaires. Or maybe not, because we'd make them nonprofit news organizations.
Well, I mean, like
I think
nonprofit people make a salary too,
Yeah,
like
I think part of the thing is that like people should still trust. Again, I think people should still trust the institutions. I think that people should trust their local news and understand that your local CBS station is not the same thing as your national CBS station, and vice versa. I think that local news is still doing really great work. Sometimes it is a little trickier to find that information, and you might have to log off Facebook. And I think that the media is trying to figure out how to get those eyeballs, whether
Right.
it's on a TV. And I
'Cause,
think
like,
we
if
also
all the-
need to understand though
Yeah.
that the TV is can no longer be this end all
Yeah.
be all place.
Because if all the actual local hard-hitting news is on the app, that's great. But someone clicking the Facebook link, how do you convert them into an app user?
Right. I don't know. That is 100% what the higher ups, the news stations, try to figure out every day.
but this is the accessibility argument,
Right.
'Cause
If
it's
you don't
like,
have the app,
that isn't gonna happen.
it
Like,
isn't.
you
No.
know,
And that's the thing. And but I also think that we have to recognize that someone who wants to solely read a headline on Facebook and then argue in the comments, like, there's like only so much we can do for that
But on
person.
accessibility, we can say, well, these people just want to read a headline and argue in the comments. But if all you're providing is headlines that are comment fodder,
That's
Yeah.
that's exactly what I was
Oh,
about to say.
trust
like,
me.
getting less engagement.
Local
for-
news media Facebook pages are not, I don't like them. I have not been on Facebook really for like, other than the like obligatory like post a story or two on my work Facebook page. And I used it a lot to like find interviews. That's truly the only reason I was on Facebook even still, or still had it, was because it was the number one place that I found people to interview and, creeped at strangers in their DMs. But now I'm sort of trying to use my Facebook page again to like just share, kind of just the same stuff I do on TikTok and Instagram, realizing that Facebook is still this very powerful app and I can do my tiny little bit to share good stuff on there.
But you're somebody that like people trust,
I hope
like
so.
that's, and I think that in this media landscape, as I was trying to get to, like that
how many times have we said media landscape?
media landscape.
Define media landscape.
The
Pruning ones and zeros.
it's the opposite of media portrait.
Right.
The trusting a single person, because of their background and because of their accolades and because of their, tangible things that, make them a qualified person to report the news, I think is enough.
I think about that though, like in a couple of years, like if somebody doesn't know that I did the news, like what are they gonna be like? Okay, what does this girl think she's talking about on social media?
Sure.
I don't know. That is
like-
something I struggle with as well.
And maybe like on accessibility, another thing that we're saying 1,000 times, but like the, swiping someone's TikTok and reading their bio and seeing, oh, this is a reporter versus just like, oh, some guy that's just like saying stuff. And like, this is what I wanted to push back on a little bit too, because it's like, I even think that, this is not by any means an endorsement of like just vertical video news.
Right.
And nor is it an endorsement of people who are apparently qualified, and nor is it an endorsement of just people I agree with. Cause I'm thinking of people like Aaron Parnas, who like, sure, he's a good dude, but like can't stand that every single, TikTok of his is breaking news, this thing. And it's like, a lot of it is genuinely horrifying stuff, but a lot of it is just like kind of unsubstantiated, lefty rumors. And it's like, I love me a lefty rumor, like, but like, it's like not everything can be breaking news. Because
that is true.
That's
Did
what
you tell that to CNN? Do they
that's
know
what I'm saying. That's what like the TV news landscape has become, and I feel like the local news landscape, in some ways, and more some channels more than others, distills that into its like most effective parts because it is salacious crime in
mean,
your area.
Here's the thing. People spend a lot of money on consultants who like tell the news stations these things. They say this is what the people want. This is what the focus groups want. They like these buzzwords. And I know we talk about it all the time of this salacious news. We know that is in fact what people sadly want. As much as people want to say, "Oh, I don't like to watch the news. It's so negative." They do like the negative. Like that's what they click
Doom
on.
scrolling.
It's what they click on. It's what they're, the technology in the media landscape, they can see exactly the second that somebody turns off a story and things like that. So people want that. They say they don't, but they do. And we can, and vice versa. Like we can see when people aren't looking at the nicer profile pieces. But I think, and this, I was going to say this a while back, I am choosing what I post now. So you aren't getting a full spectrum of news from following me on any of my social media profiles. Like I'm not sharing all the bad and horrific stuff that happens because it is happening in our state. There's crime, like there's bad, sad stuff every day. But I know that you can get that elsewhere, and I'm going to share the more positive side of things. So I'm also a now biased
Is that
form of news. I don't, in a way.
This is the thing. I think that's why I am a fan of yours.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's not that you just share positives, because you shared stuff about the tornado recently.
I do, yeah. Well, and I think that, but I'm not also sharing every homicide story anymore.
Well, that's the thing, because it's like if you share only homicide stories, you think like, I live in McKinley Heights. Like, I think there's people that live in, wherever that watch local news that think I walk outside and get murdered every day.
100%. I watched a TikTok last night of some girl who visited St. Louis, and she said, my Uber driver told me I was, in the most dangerous city in the world, and I went and saw this terrible thing, and I saw this arch, and I think I'll never come back here. I'm like, well, first off,
yeah.
But then I also saw a TikTok of a girl who went to 21C on vacation, and
Yes.
she was like, I didn't realize St. Louis was so cool. So it's like, but here's what I was getting to is like, yeah, like I love doom scrolling. And yeah,
I
like
don't.
news. I don't love it.
He means love is like love addiction. Kind of
Yeah, that's
thing.
what I'm saying. So it's like, yeah, news agencies know what people want and give them what they want. So do drug dealers.
right, 100%.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of the same.
Yeah, and that's the thing too is like, which
And you don't do that, is the point.
I don't.
right. So
not.
it's like yes, and you can say, well, everything's biased because everything has a perspective. But like I think that you're clearly saying, okay, with me having my own platform, my goal is not to present the stories that I'm expecting to have the broadest reach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using whatever reach I have to present the stories that I think people most need to see.
Or that people might not know about, or people like, hey, like, here's a fun little thing happening, or here's an event that maybe you saw, but maybe you didn't. And I think my thing right now is that I am not really beholden to anybody. I'm not in that editorial meeting saying like, actually, no, you're going to cover this today. And that is a very freeing thing. It's also a little like overwhelming. Like, oh my God, there's so much I could cover. And we talk about, crime and homicides, and there's so much more. There's a desperate need for deeper reporting on that. And that's something we're missing, and
Right,
we don't
beyond
have
just the numbers.
beyond
Right.
the numbers.
I mean, God, if I read another St. Louis Post, I can't read many St. Louis Post-Dispatch articles anymore. But
You
if
should
I read
support
another one
local
that's like a
journalism.
shooting happened,
Yeah.
and that's the entire article. And also, not to mention, I mean, like, there's the
I
other
could
side
go
of this that
so
it's like
I have so many thoughts, but
I would love. Well, I'm gonna throw it to David real quick because he's asking, but I would love to hear your thoughts on that. There is a side of this also that it's like, people think the reporting is biased because it's factual,
Right.
And there's a whole contingent in this country right now that thinks factual reporting is just an opinion, man.
100%.
Yes, David.
I want to bring this as like hyper local as possible.
To this room.
To this
Breaking
room.
news.
Well, news in general has to stay like regionally, right? Like I understand there's still a lot of dying outlets in St. Louis happening as well. Like there's the Kirkwood Webster Times. There's the Pulse in like Brentwood, Rock Hill area. These are these small municipalities that have these print medias that they share to their local municipalities are also going under.
Yeah.
And because the people that are writing for them are either dying off like physically, or B, these areas are changing and becoming younger, and so younger people are just getting your media online. I'm so curious how you see the media landscape in St. Louis. Oh yeah, the random shakes in this building.
Have
It's
an earthquake.
the St. Louis City Health Department has a garage that they rent that's directly underneath this office.
Okay.
Sorry, Alexis, we are not falling apart.
There's like an old school gate.
I was gonna say I've never felt an earthquake really.
Yeah, no, it happens like
Still
3
haven't,
times
okay.
a day in this room. There's a giant like wood gate that they've retrofitted into a very janky garage door.
Gotcha.
Sorry. Anyway,
So world's not falling. Good.
we need to get on that 4D podcast sharing so people can feel what we
So
feel.
that your listeners and viewers
Sit.
can feel the
Can
shake.
shake with us, baby.
Sit in the room.
Sorry.
I'm so curious if you see like a shift towards like away from vertical media, or just away from. I mean, it's going to be here for a long time. Like, we're going to be addicted to our phones for a very long time. But there is a generation that wants
Less phone.
less phone, wants in person as much as possible, wants our city infrastructure to be more person based and less car centric, and like walk to things and have a third space where we can just see. And I think when that happens, I think it can happen in this city. Do you think, I'm curious about this, the world we live in St. Louis, so car-centric, so far spread out from each other, affects like the media landscape of St. Louis? Like, do you think the fact that we're so like spread out from each other?
I don't think so. I mean, I think most cities are spread out in a way. We just love to talk about our area so much. I don't know, like people love their neighborhoods. They love to like know what city they live in, but I do think the larger public doesn't actually understand that they live in the city or the county or what municipality or tiny little township that they live in. I think a lot of people just identify themselves as living in St. Louis. They don't understand that the city of St. Louis is sometimes different from the county of St. Louis. I know a lot of us who are like tuned in, we get that. But when you talk to like the general public, most people don't know that. They don't understand that St. Louis City has different crime stats than St. Louis County. They don't understand that there are multiple mayors. There's dozens upon dozens of mayors. And maybe they're aware that like their town of Kirkwood has a mayor, but who then is the county executive and who is the mayor? I think most people, it doesn't impact their, at least in their own mind, they don't think it impacts their day-to-day life. So they don't think about it as much unless you're really like in tune. So I don't know. I almost sometimes think when we really dive too deep into like what neighborhood this is happening in, it makes people tune out a little. I think you need to know what's happening in your local government. I think that's one of the biggest losses when we talk about the loss of these sort of very small neighborhood papers, because those are the only people who are looking through the city council minutes, who are monitoring the school board minutes. And once those people die out, and you're right that some of those papers are, it's one person who's just like holding on tight. Yeah. And those are the only people who are looking at that stuff. And I, as someone who covered school board back in Knoxville, circling all the way back to WATE, I covered school board meetings. And unless you have somebody deep diving into that, you're not going to know if there is massive waste and fraud. And those are the kind of investigations that local news still tries to do. It's harder to do when you're cutting staff. Sometimes these are investigations that take months and months and tons of time to dig through that data, but it's so important. And that is why I think local media, in whatever form it comes in, whether it's, your traditional TV media, your newspaper media, perhaps there needs to be a podcast that deep dives into city council minutes. I don't want it to be mine. But that is that is the reason. Like, that's why we need local media. You can get those national headlines on dozens and dozens of platforms, but you're not going to get what happened last night at Webster Grove City Hall.
Yeah.
Well, we've kind of arrived at a spot where it's like we have these couple of puzzle pieces that all kind of, I feel like, fit together that we haven't put together as a culture yet. Like, and sure, could be $1 million idea, but I don't think it's really that. I think it's more that we as a culture just need to congeal a little bit more on these. But like meeting people where they are on social media, there's that. But there's also people that really care about hyperlocality and being out in a place. And then there's also these dying entities that are hyperlocal, that are small.
Yeah.
Like, why is it that, people love, hey, look, there's a house, and trust you as this like person to report on.
Oh, it's so funny is people
real
don't
estate.
even know I'm a realtor.
Right.
They come up to me and like, I love your
I
series.
actually forgot for a second. I'm like, what is he talking about? Then I remembered you are a realtor.
But like,
That's it.
But
People
like-
have no idea I'm a realtor. They come up to me and like, I love your series. I'm like, thanks so much.
But
and
you're
then we start
Do
talking.
you want to buy a house?
And they like talk about their house, and I was like, I'd love to work with you. And they're like, oh, are you a realtor?
it's like, yeah.
It's like, I don't want
I
to
was
be
just out
I was
here
like,
making TikTok content.
I don't want to. Well, the thing they say about realtors is like they're just like vegans. How do
fake.
you know?
They're fake tours.
How do you know a vegan? Well, they'll tell you right away.
Right.
It's like that same things are about realtors.
But, like,
I don't
you-
like to tell people. I don't want to seem like snobbish and all that.
Sure. Like, but your platform is even like is huge for what I'm even talking about. Like the Belleville News Democrat.
Yeah.
Like where is
A fantastic institution.
correct? Like where is the David Lemon look there's a house version of local print media? Like where is your like local bar, your local small business version of print media?
Yeah.
If I live in Kirkwood or I live near Kirkwood or like, and there's there's an Alexis Zotos in my neighborhood who's a credible person, like for reporting the news.
Yeah.
Like where we haven't come together as a culture yet to like find the different local outlets for that. Like a person,
But,
a person who
would it
basically
be,
like
would
does
it be
it.
a person? But
You're
like
just
then,
saying,
but then you think about like
a crowdsourced platform
Sorry,
that's
not
kind
even
of
a platform.
edited.
I'm
you just mean
imagining-
a person.
I'm imagining like a TikToker or
Yeah.
that
Well,
like
one, I
that is like reporting on the city minutes.
I think
and
they
or
do exist.
reporting
Because
on
I
the school
think,
board minutes.
well, but here's the thing that takes time and that takes money to like sift
Sure.
through that and go through that. And
Yeah.
unless somebody's like altruistic or has the funding of their parents
Or
to
is
then
retired.
or is retired, which is why I think a lot of these newspapers are honestly. There was a really great story done, I think, by Steve Hartman, who like basically profiled the last man standing at like a local newspaper, and he did it because he loved it. But you
Right.
also realize like you can't do it. Even I think about on my platform, like I want to tell this story on this platform, I want to tell this, but then I'm like, wait, there's only so many hours in a day. I also have to like, keep my children alive. I
was
also
gonna say,
like
can't-
I want to
sure.
share about restaurants. I want to share about this news story. I want to share about tornado. Oh, I hit the
You're good.
microphone. Yeah, you just realize there's so many stories to tell, and that's why there's larger newsrooms.
Well,
but
sure. I guess it's rather it's less like maybe an Alexis Zotos and more like either it is these small local outlets, finding a future in this.
Yeah.
In meeting people where they are on social media, or like finding like the Fox Park Neighborhood Association. Like it's also just part of their like they have a social media manager. Actually, the Fox Park Neighborhood Association, which we're like a part of because we're business owners, like a reasonably young board, and it's like not that you need to be young to be on social media. Like honestly, more old people need to be doing like credible, cool stuff on social media. Like that'd be awesome. And I mean, as we get older, I'm sure that will happen. But like and I'm sure the younger generation will be like, shut the hell up.
Right.
But like seeing like people who are already civically engaged because of some other element, like kind of culturally finding a different shade of responsibility within that civic engagement.
I think that is a future of local understanding of your community is finding. And I always tell people like if you're not finding what you're looking for in the local news, you need to find it in your neighborhood association. You need to check newsletters. listen to podcasts. There are people telling stories. You just have to sometimes do a little bit more work than you're used to.
Yeah. Well, let's.
I was gonna wrap up. I was gonna say one more thing as like a kind of an ending thought.
Well, I want to wrap up on something like positive.
Oh
and
no,
fun.
this is.
Good.
It was gonna be. Yeah, I was going there.
Yeah.
He's going up.
I was like, let's punch up to
remembered
the end of this.
The other night, I was.
You mean the doom of news isn't punchy enough?
We were talking with a union friend of Bradley's, and I'm historically bad at like making lists of things like out loud. I'm like, number 1, this, number 2, and then I forget what number 2 was. I remembered number 2, and this was I remembered number 2, and this is relevant to this moment. Like in communication, period, right? Like we've been only doing this kind of social media game for like what 20 years,
if
that. Like
truly 15.
We've like the thing that gives me hope, I guess, in this media landscape is like we've only really been communicating with each other across cultures for like 150 years. We're baby fucking giraffes when it comes
baby elephants.
We're baby elephants.
Baby elephants seem more put together than baby giraffes.
Yeah, but they can't run as fast as giraffes. Those
That's
things
true.
Are like
Baby
37
giraffes
miles
like
an
are
hour,
just
man.
like, but they do
Imagine
come
if
out
your
walking,
legs
which is
were
crazy.
that long.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, but like we are stumbling and bumbling and rumbling into this like, and we only know what we know, right? Like we are so adolescent in talking to each other, and I feel like local news is one of the, vanguards of sanity in that. And also at the same time, the other wolf that lives inside of this is like a vanguard of exposition of that newness to communicating with each other. You go into any comment section, you see the lack of ability to communicate with each other, and it's like you have
should
some
stay out of comments.
sure, but so should the news agencies. In my opinion, though, it's like it's this we sometimes have this cyclical thing where it's like, oh, this is what's going to feed the comments, so we're going to do this on the news, and then the comments get bad, and then it gets worse, and it gets worse, and then we end up with first alert. But I want to name and recognize that baby giraffe-ness, and it gives me hope that as we get better at communicating with each other, the local news will help to facilitate that. And I think that's, because of people like you.
I weirdly have a lot of hope for the like media landscape of this city, and like even though we've lost bastions of good writing and media with RFT and like KDHX.
But you've got folks like the Mound City Messenger, which is like a startup of all volunteers trying to kind of like fill in some of the gaps that RFT left.
Yes.
And like the Soulard Renaissance has been around for like 50 years, and it's just like a neighborhood rag. But
And
like they report on
STL
real
magazine
stuff that's happening.
and like Sarah and Ryan over there are doing great work trying to like keep their stuff alive. And I'll follow them till the day I die. But I'm really excited for what you're gonna do. Do you have any ideas when you're gonna start your podcast?
Starting July. I'm recording my first episode in 2 weeks.
All right.
So stay tuned. I'm working out final little details.
Yeah. We'll let you drop your thing on your timeline.
Yeah, but no, I am excited. A podcast is coming. One of my most sad things about leaving KMOV was leaving my podcast, because I loved the Meet St. Louis podcast. It was my baby. It would have been.
I was a regular listener. I can't speak for you
that.
guys.
We had done 330 plus episodes, which is wild.
Did you that meant wow?
Yeah,
we have like 25.
We're on 24
It was
today.
a lot. It was a lot. 330 something, I think, was our final count. And it was just a place to tell the stories. I mean, it was a place to kind of like dive deeper than you did in a traditional minute and 30 news story. And I'm excited for the next edition, which will be a similar vibe to Meet St. Louis. I will be interviewing interesting people. It will not be nearly as funny as you all, because you guys you guys are fun.
We're very narrow. We know.
You guys are fun.
But thank you for thinking we're part of the St. Louis media landscape.
We
appreciate that.
You guys are hey, if a political leader comes on your show, they respect you enough to know that like you have a voice that matters in our community. And I think going back to that is you have to realize that there is something beyond a traditional media, and know that you can find information and voices and stories in a plethora of places.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here.
Meeting people where they are.
Meeting people where they
people
are.
Where they are.
Overarching is recorded at Fly North Theatricals here in sunny South City, St. Loogie Magoogie. Our producer is Unia Gilbert. Logo designed by JP Burks, a.k.a. Scrub. Follow us on social media at Overarching ST Lewis. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, you should. And if you are, go to your local news outlet and smash that subscribe button.
And download their app.
Where the real stuff is.
Yeah. I'm Colin.
I'm David.
I'm Bradley.
I'm Alexis.
Hey.
And this was Overarching.
Goodbye.